everybody. I'm glad to have two very special artists in the room. If you don't know, my name is Vania Claiborne. I function as a school coordinator with Dance Project and have been given the opportunity to host this conversation this Black History Month to talk about just as creatives in dance, as Black creatives in dance, ways that we have come to where we are, where we're going, the things that influence our lives. On this NCDF podcast, and it's really cool to be here. I've been a past NCDF festival artist, and I know that, so has Jordan been in the festival, and Amelia is now a current artist in residence at Dance Project, so it's cool to have all these touchstones in the room, and then just to have a really cool conversation. So without further ado, I would love for you guys to get to know these wonderful artists in the room. So first, Amelia, if you don't mind just telling us whatever you want about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you got here, and then Jordan will follow the same.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I am Amelia Byrd, originally from Memphis, Tennessee, moved to Greensboro in 2011 for graduate school. I got my MFA in dance and choreography from UNCG in 2014. And then now I am currently teaching dance at Penn Griffin School for the Arts in High Point, North Carolina. I've been there for 6 years now. I'm also a board member for the North Carolina Dance Education Organization. And as Vania mentioned, I am a part of the Artist in Residence program through NCDF. So I'm just out here living and thriving in this dance community, trying to make things happen.
Dope.
Hello, I am Jordan Booker-Medley, really. I got married recently in July of last year, 2020. But it says Medley on my thing. I hadn't changed it yet. Anyway, my pronouns are he, him. I identify as a Black queer artist. I'm a solo choreographer, solo dancer, solo freelance artist, choreographer, whatever you want to call me. I'm an artist. Long story short, I like to do all of it if I can. I am currently doing nothing dance related, but that a little bit by design, by intention, and then a little bit of it just because of the circumstances with our industry currently. More by intention though. I really wanted some time away from dance for a second to focus a little bit on some other things that I have going on. I currently function as the Engagement and Relations Services Manager with the Arts Council of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. And so I've been working alongside a lot of artists and grants and all that kind of stuff, which has been really, really dope. I graduated from UNC School of the Arts here in Winston-Salem, which is where I currently live as well. And I am going back to school in a few months. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, to get my master's in arts administration. Yeah. And I have also, while in the process of doing all these things, also been enrolled in a certificate program that will finish up in 8 weeks. And I've also been, I also have been studying for the LSAT. So I have a lot of plans and goals.
Taking over the world.
Long story short, because as much as I'm a dancer, I have intersectional identities and interests. And so, you know, we do it all. We can do everything. We're great.
So, well, I'm glad to have both of you here. And just want to start the conversation off. We'll take it back because the way I've been thinking about this conversation is sometimes when we get in the room and start on this Black History Month, the year of our Lord 2021, we start talking about we always talk about trauma. We talk about the difficulties of becoming an artist. I'm like, it's there. We know that story. But I do want us to kind of in an expression if it does bring joy, hopefully from a place of joy, to look back and see what are the things that were a part of making us artists? What was a part of our journey, whether it was educators, teachers, experiences, workshops that kind of got our love into dance first, but then also what was that part that connected all of a sudden our Blackness? Because I think sometimes our awareness of who we are in space and time and society might come later. For me, it's currently evolving. I was you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I am Black. And that affects everything else. And you see yourself and you're like, I'm not just a dancer. I'm a Black dancer. I'm not just a choreographer. I am a Black choreographer, and all of these things that kind of go into that. So if you just wanted to share a bit of that journey, if that's the same or different, however you want to talk about it, from coming into the art field and all of a sudden how your Blackness has changed things, and what were those elements that kind of opened your eyes and brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, who wants to? Do you want to give us? You want to tell somebody to start? Because I know I can. I'm also a talker, so I know I can.
Go ahead, you got it. You already started. You got it. Go ahead.
So for me, I'm gonna take it back all the way to high school life. Is when I didn't even realize that I wanted to dance. To be honest with you, I really didn't start doing it until I got into high school, and then I took a dance class and was like, maybe this is something I like doing. I had an experience where we had a choreography assignment in class, and I worked with the group, and we choreographed a little thing. It was like a trio, I think I remember, and did it. And the dance teacher kind of pulled me aside and just had a real intense conversation with me. Got real emotional and was like, "I think you need to consider doing this as a full-time thing in your life." And I was like, from that moment on, I was kind of like, "Whoa, yeah, okay, maybe this is a thing for me." And so I started to pursue that very adamantly, mostly in musical theater, which is still my passion, still my love. And then decided that I wanted to go to school and do it. And so I started training at UNC School of the Arts. And it wasn't until really my senior year of college that I kind of woke up, and like you said, it was like, I'm a Black dancer. Like I'm Black. Like I knew who I was as a Black man in society, navigating the world already, but it didn't click with me in terms of my Blackness and how it connects to who I am as a dancer until college, because I had some experiences where, my professors really didn't understand how to support Black dance students, Black dance artists. And so there were lots of moments where I myself was going through some things emotionally, mentally, and had to learn how to self-advocate. And in the process of self-advocating, there was a lot of pushback, and a lot of fighting back and forth about, what's best for me as a Black man, Black dance artist. And then these misconceptions about, we're not all the same. We all have very different lived experiences. And so it started to really click then. And I was like, all right, so we got to start to talk about this thing. And so, I have had some inspirational people cross my path along the way. I've been fortunate to have people like as mentors in my life, like Jewel Lane. And I had the chance to really get to know Camille Brown a little bit. And just seeing their work, seeing how they tell their stories and how they talk about their identities and who they are as Black artists, Black dance artists, has really helped to inspire me to really unpack that. And so after graduating from college, I really started to do my own thing, pick up and create my own work, create my own solos, do some residency programs, and started to kind of dig deep in myself and figure out who I was and what I was trying to do, and what I wanted my work to say about me as a Black man, Black dance artist. Still on that journey. I've not arrived at all, and I don't know if I ever will, but I'm always finding ways to new ways and to explain and express who I am. And also, I'm also consistently intrigued and perpetually emerging, in a sense, in terms of my identity and as a Black man, Black dance artist. And I absolutely like it. I like what it feels like. I don't know. It's unique. It's really exciting to me. But I attribute a lot of that to dance teachers who really, in my past in high school, who really, and even beyond that really just didn't give up on me and really encouraged me. They saw me before I saw myself. And they kept saying, yeah, do this thing. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should. So then, I ended up where I am currently, doing a lot of the things that I only imagined in dreams that I may do, and that I wasn't going to necessarily get to until like maybe later on down in my life, in my career. And I'm here now in a space where I'm like, wow, okay, I can do this thing. So yeah, yes. And it's Black History Month, so my Blackness is amplified. Like it's already out there. I already embrace it, not 24/7, 365. But is amplified during this month.
Super dope. That's dope. You said so many things. We're going to touch back on them there in my mind, but Amelia, I would love to hear some of your journey and whatever you want to share regarding that.
Yeah, sure. Coincidentally, my story is almost the same as Jordan's. I mean, I can go way back to, I started dance when I was 3 years old at a predominantly white dance studio. And I believe for a long period of time, I was the only Black student at that studio for many, many years. But bypassing all that, when I got to high school, I went to a performing arts high school in Memphis. And ironically, it was not my dance teacher that led me to believe that I could make a career out of this. It was my junior year economics teacher that led me to believe that this is something that I should pursue. I remember he I don't even remember learning economics from him. He always would just go on these long tangents talking to us about his college life. And so one of these days he was telling us that we should really focus on what we want to pursue in life, because he never was sure about what he wanted to do. And so he was like, you're at a performing arts school, you studied this art form for years, your parents have paid X amount of money in private lessons, you should go for it. Yeah. You should not like go into the medical field or become a lawyer or any of those things. Try your art out. And so it was that moment that I realized, you know what? I think I do want to do that. I think I want to go to college for dance and figure out, you know, what can I do with it? And so it's exactly what I did. I went to college for dance. Then I taught for a while in Memphis. Then I moved here and started dancing. And it was really college life and grad life is when I understood and figured out, you know what, I am a Black dance artist, I'm a Black choreographer. I should be working on things that speak to who I am and who I am as a Black woman, who I am as a Black dancer, who I am as a Black choreographer. Like, what is my voice? What is it that I want to say through movement? After watching, you know, some people in my cohort, especially if they were white, watching what they're creating, they're making work about their life and the patriarchy and capitalism and all these big things. I'm like, that doesn't really concern me. No shade, but there's so many things that's happening in the Black community that needs to be seen through art, right? And especially through movement, because yes, I'm a dancer and a choreographer. So that is still a part of my journey. Like Jordan said, I don't think I've reached the pivotal end all moment yet. I'm still learning, still working, still creating. And I feel like it's very much important to make that known. This is coming from a Black woman. This is my Black voice, my Black art that is on the scene and needs to be seen. I remember I had a friend back in grad school who was Black, and she said that she didn't want it to be known that this work was created by a Black woman. She wanted the work to speak on its own. And I disagree with that. Like, I want you to know that this piece was created about a Black woman. It's for us, by us, FUBU. It's about my Black self, and it's about the Black community and, you know, all of our trials and tribulations and whatnot, but it's the good and the bad, right? And yeah, I think it's important. It's important that put that, you know, that title on it, that yeah, I'm Black and I'm here and I ain't going nowhere.
Put it on a mug. I'm Black and I'm here, period. That's where we're at. Okay. Man, that's so good. And like, I can relate both to you guys, as far as having that same like journey from like high school into performing arts high school. Actually, in the craziest of things, me and Jordan went to the same high school, disconnected for years, got reconnected like 2-3 years ago, which is insane. And for me, I heard both of you talk about kind of educators, and I guess I'll tie my question in with a story. For me, I didn't know, I chose dance later in life. I also chose dance to pursue it in college, just like the both of you later, really to the last minute. Like, I went to an audition because someone was like, oh, there's an audition this weekend, you want to go? And I was like, okay, cool. There was no planning. Like, there's none of the things I should have done. But for me, when I came to school and started taking class, I had only taken dance in like an informal setting, no studio. I mean, like we was on the praise team at church. They made me dance because they didn't want you living your best life or whatever they wanted. And then I would do hip hop at the house with the cousins and stuff like that, like in these social settings. So by the time I got to class, they're like, wear these tights, do all this other stuff. It was very foreign. I was like, bump y'all, I'm not doing nothing. Matter of fact, I was on academic probation until the 8th grade. Like I didn't perform for the first time until I was in the 8th grade. That means 2 whole years of school. I was like, I'm not doing nothing. But for me, it was a teacher who stepped in, and it was a Black dance teacher, because I was cutting up, you know, in trouble and in all that stuff. And we were learning stags across the floor, these, you know, just stag leaps across the floor. And she was really into like this like classic modern, you're gonna learn these stags. And I did it across the floor, and she was standing in the door. It was another teacher's classroom, and she looked, stopped the entire room, pulled me, just said, you come here, and pulled me to the front to go across the floor and said, do it by yourself. And I'm like, oh Lord. I was like, what did I do? Did I do it wrong? I went across by myself, and she said, do you see that? And I said, like, yeah. She was like, if you applied yourself, you could do this. Like, that was wonderful. Like, I mean, like the full on, like, stop, I'm about to either roast you or like community encourage something I see in you. And for me, I think I didn't realize how important that moment was, to have a Black teacher step in and look and say, I know there's a lot going on, but you have something to bring to the table, and you can do this and do this thing well. And so I now, having taught in certain settings, I know both of you either teach full time or have taught in certain settings. I would love to know if there was a Black educational experience where there was a teacher that kind of formed your interest in the field, or now how do you approach your teaching embodied as who you are as Black people when you come into the room, especially with other students that are different than you, or not like you, or that you see, you're like, oh Lord, I know this one. This one is this one. I know you because I know you from life, from experience, and I want to teach in a certain way to you. So yeah, that's general. Pick from whenever you thought from that, and yeah.
Personally, for me, it had a lot. I think for me as a teacher, when I am teaching in any space, a lot of what I do, how I come into that space, is informed by my experience. Like going back to my experience in college, where I felt like I was in a lot of spaces where, and consistently in a space as a dancer, or in rehearsals, in conversations with professors and teachers, where it was just like, I didn't feel like I really had a voice, and that my voice mattered. And so for me, one of the things that I really made sure that I as I continue to learn how to value myself and my voice, and to self-advocate, one of the things I really bring into my teaching practice is this idea that students have a voice, and that it's important to listen to them. And I personally, when I come into my classroom to teach, or to any class space, I like to have conversations with my students. I like to get to know them on a level. It doesn't have to be deep down, we gotta talk and have a really emotional sit down, but I just like to let them know, and I like them to know that this is a safe space. And I think that sometimes in dance, a lot of times in dance, there's not a lot of that. And especially in professional settings, or educational settings, excuse me, there's not a lot of reiterating and helping the students feel and understand that this is a safe space where you can fail, mess up, make mistakes, do whatever you need to do to figure out how to do this thing, because dance is tough, dance is hard, and dance can be messy in a lot of ways. And so in my own artistic practice, it's important for me to really establish that idea, because I think you really see progress in students when you help them feel like they can do those things in a space, as opposed to come in and be a particular way, these high expectations for them to perform a certain way. It's like, no, that's not going to happen, because like you said, everybody is different. Everybody comes from a different walk of life. Everybody has a different level of teaching, understanding, education, especially as it relates to dance, because there's a million dance schools out there. Ideas of thoughts and how we do a certain thing, how you tendu and how you do a plie, and different ballet methods, Vaganova, Cicchetti, whatever, Balanchine's own stylistic approach. There's a lot out there. So, it's important for students when they come in my mind, to feel like it's okay. You can bring all that with you, but let's, you know, come into this space together, open mind, and let's see what we can do together. Especially as a choreographer, especially as a choreographer. It's huge for me as a choreographer, because I'm like, if we're not having fun, we're not doing this. If we're not in a safe space and I don't feel safe in this space, I can't bring my best self, and I can't do my best work. So you know, that's extremely important for me. That's probably the most defining principle of my teaching practice, is that idea. On top of that, obviously the training, my educational background, my training speaks for itself. Very classical in approach, but and that doesn't mean anything to me. I kind of go into space and do whatever I feel. So, you know.
Dope. Nice. What about you, Amelia?
Yeah, when I was in undergrad, I had a teacher. She was from New York, and she taught us jazz technique. Was the class? It was jazz, right? But she also gave us Horton and Dunham. It was like a mixture, and hip hop, a mixture of all things in one class. And she would give us the nitty gritty of life outside of college in regards to dance. She would tell us the hardcore truths that we needed to hear. She would say that all of you are not going to make it, but if you push yourselves, if you try hard, if you want to get out there and really make something of yourself, you can make it, but you can't just sit around and expect it to happen. And so I took that to heart, and I live with that still to this day. And I preach that to my own students. Like Jordan was saying, I know that they come in from all walks of life. A lot of them, you know, take dance at their studios. And so they've learned dance, you know, in this setting. And then they come to me with all of my history and my background. And I'm figuring out what is important to me and what is important to teach to them. And like you said, I want to keep it an open, vulnerable space, a safe space, to have that good rapport with them, to make sure that they are safe and are open to talking about everything. And I always tell them that if this is what you want to do, you have to work at it. Dance is a hard field. It's not easy. It's not about how many pirouettes you can do or how high you can kick your leg up to your nose. Like, you have to be a well-rounded individual, not even just with different techniques, but knowing about, you know, where it comes from, how to approach it, the philosophy of it, the analyzation of it, everything. And so that has become a huge part of my teaching practice, and especially for all my little Black girls and my little Black boys. Like, you're going to have it even harder in this field. You're going to be up against some hardcore folks. So if you want to make it, you got to work at it. And yeah, that's been my philosophy. That's been my approach, and it's been working out pretty well. I have some kids that's, you know, traveling and dancing and different circuits. So I guess I'm doing good.
Man,
making some stars out here.
Plan, right? Just give me the will call. Put me in will call. That's all I ask. Put me in will call. That's it. Okay.
Exactly.
Man, that's so cool, and I love the fact that you guys are thinking. It shouldn't have to be said, but thinking critically about all of those things into the classroom, because I know there are educators who may not give that same brain space to it, and I think the more artists, teaching artists, educators giving that brain space to seeing your students as whole people will just, I mean, I think it'll make healthier dancers with a longevity and however long they want to be in the field. But on that kind of like conversation of the things that wrap up your particular voice as an artist, I would love to know, moving into your creative side, what your influences are and how did they become your influences. And for me, to frame it up, I would say I didn't really know I could have access to certain styles of dance, like colluding all at the same time, because when I came into the concert world, it was like, you're going to learn these classic techniques and everything else that you've brought into like your embodied movement from family, from friends, from other genres. They don't make it into this space only if you're choreographing. So for me, I didn't know that you could incorporate all of the ways that you move and been moving your whole life into the ways that you were learning. and that kind of coincided when I started realizing that this is what Black artists have been doing the entire time, innovating on top of what either was classic or creating their new classic and melding them together. And you know, the high school experience like we had at the Performing Arts High School was we learned a lot of history. So we watched I think I watched like I think I've seen Revelations more than any human needs to see it. Like that's like starting one. It's like, and we will watch Revelations every year, and then we'll move on to what was that documentary with Bill T. Jones? It's like African Americans in dance, like that long one where you see like I think it's Barrel House Blues. Like you get all the backup, all that stuff every year.
Yeah.
But for me, it was seeing. It was 8th grade field trip seeing Bill T. Jones's company on stage, and I was like, oh, "That's a Black man. A Black man has made this work." Like it didn't click for me, and I was like, and those are Black dancers. And on one stage, step one was like, wow, they're on this proscenium stage, this place of all of its history of regalness and honor, and it's just them, and they look like me, and they're moving in this classic form. That kind of brightened my eyes to be like, oh, I have place here. Like I can do this thing called concert dance. There's people like me doing it for a long time and doing it to this high level of performance, you know? But it then I think within coinciding with that same journey of like accepting my station of my Blackness, my class, the classism, the gender, the race, all that stuff that goes into my Blackness, not necessarily having to just present itself in the same classical forms to be considered high art, but that I could bring my raggediness, my hoodness, like all this other stuff, my hood proximity into the conversation. I didn't see that later on until really now. I was like, oh shoot, we can be like the whole Black self too. Like, and not just like I am Black and we are professionals and we're doing this dance, but I can bring all these other themes that influence me as well. So at least for me on my journey, that's where I'm seeing this kind of teetering and shift. So I would love to know if that's similar for you. Did you find a divide between like, man, the moment I first saw myself on stage and how that informed your artistry now? Or are you seeing maybe a regression of some things that you picked up before? So revolving your artistry and some of the Black artists that may have influenced that journey for you. How are you seeing that? How are you seeing those influences now, working out in what you're making? Is there anything you're pulling back on, anything you're diving back into? I would just love to know what those kind of thought processes are in your creative like expression right now.
Sure, I can go first this time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm glad you had that experience in high school, because I did not. Even though I went to a performing arts high school, we were all about technique and performing for this place and that place. It wasn't until undergrad is where I got the dance history, and we had a whole section on Black dance history. It's when I learned about Bill T. Jones and Alvin Ailey and Ron K. Brown and all these folks that I did not know existed. I didn't know that they were, out here making art. And I remember Urban Bush Women was a guest artist one time. They performed at my school. And it was then I was like, whoa, those are Black women, not just dancing. They're up there just moving and grooving and doing all the things and singing and doing spoken word. I'm like, all of that can happen at the same time while dancing. And the piece that they showed was hair stories. And that's when I just fell in love with my Blackness, like again and again and again. I'm like, you can create a piece about Black hair? What? I was just blown away. And I've been following them almost like a stalker since then. And a lot of their work influences, and I am inspired by what they do, and it shows up in my work. Like I said earlier, it's creating work and speaking from a Black female voice. And even though I have like a mixture of students of different diversities and different demographics in my at my school, I still throw that in there. I'm like, it's not gonna hurt for y'all to know about this. It's not gonna hurt at all. And and we do a lot of work, a lot of writing, a lot of talking about different Urban Bush women work, and also Bill T. Jones and Ron K. Brown. And a couple of my favorite Urban Bush women dancers, Crystal Brown, Maria Bauman, what's her face? She has a long name that I can't pronounce. It'll come to me. But anyway, Shawnee Collins, Achille, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just show up in everything that I do. And I try to keep that in my creative practice within the school and outside of schools. I think it's important to be seen, for that to be seen and for that to be known. And I mean, it goes without saying, of course, we are not monolithic. We all have similar experiences, but different experiences, and we deserve to have it to be heard and for it to be seen in different ways. And so I try to preach that to my students, and I preach that to myself in my creative practices and my choreographic efforts and the whole nine. So yeah.
So
this is a very loaded question, loaded theme for me, because I have so many, so many thoughts about it all. Some, just to name, I'm gonna start naming names, okay? Just so it's up my brain. First and foremost, everybody that knows me pretty well knows that one of my biggest in terms of inspirations, just as an artist in general, is Chance the Rapper, for so many reasons. Specifically because of the fact that this man really is an individual in every aspect of that, what that means. Like, he really did his own thing, has always been doing his own thing. And that was always his goal, and to give back to the people that matter and the communities that matter to him and where he grew up, that kind of stuff. It's very much all here. Like, yeah, so there's that. But also, I'm just, even in terms of dance and in terms of my own individual work, you have Kyle Abraham, Camille Brown, Jewel Lane, Ron K. Brown, Clifton Brown, a lot of Browns.
A lot of brown people.
I mean, a lot of brown people, but also just looking at people like, you got Crystal Pite, you have Counter Technique, you have just so many, there's so many things that I find myself, one of the things I love the most about dance, especially at a time like now where it's consistently changing, is I just love that it feels like I can bring my whole self to dance, whatever that means. Like, if I have whatever background, then absolutely bring that in the space. I'm all about that, because I'm like, it all informs it anyway. Like, it informs your body needs to be informed in as many ways as possible, because the more information, the better. I feel like Camille has actually said that in many interviews. Like, she's like, I'm dancing at this point in my life, like this age. It's like, it's a different experience, and hitting your 40s, and, you're like, wow, okay, I'm not 40, but I'm saying, like, like, I imagine all that lived experience, all that information that your body's taking in at that point in your life, it absolutely informs your practice, informs your dancing in a different way. And I find myself experiencing that now in my life, and paying more attention to it, at least. Real specifically, again, like going back to college, like all the stuff we did in college, all that classical training, and then we started getting Counter Technique in there, and then I started, the musical theater in me. It's all that stuff has really started to show itself in so many ways in my artistic practice. So much so that as a dancer myself in my choreographic work, I tend to really bring a lot of elements, specifically as it relates to the performative aspects of musical theater in my work. I absolutely love the idea of props. I love setting. I love the idea of building a scene, building a setting, building a space, like with objects and items and idea, in that sense, and the costuming and all of it. I really love that aspect in terms of we're bringing that to my choreographic work. But I find myself also wanting to bounce back and go into, and sometimes come into this space of like, let's just keep it all as bare and as simple as possible.
Yeah.
I've been working on a personal thing, a project of mine called Black Boy Rhetoric, and it's been a thing I've been working on for like 2.5 years now. Yeah. It's some solos that I've been working on to collaborate, to come bring together into a one-man show. Who knows when it will go up, but it is a work in progress. But it's literally about my so much of what we've been talking about in this conversation. It's literally about me bringing my entire self, my entire lived experience in my own way, in my own, telling my own narrative, and bringing all those things that have informed me up to this point into a dance, and like really trying to using it to tell a story about myself, and how I got to where I am, and who I am, and who I think I am now, and who I may be later on. I don't know. It's a lot, but I don't know. There's a lot of influences in my work. I could never really pinpoint any one particular. I just am always inspired and consistently inspired by the work that I see. Hip hop too, like, you know, there's a lot of great hip hop artists that I really love. Feel right, you know, like some great people out here, and their work is amazing. It's phenomenal. It gets me moving, gets me excited, and I think that there's, you know, you all, again, even just seeing it, you bring all that to the work. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if again, like as an artist, I feel like you're always in this space of reflection. Like, at least if you're in, depending on where you, I don't know, maybe the artist varies, but as me myself, I'm always in this space of reflection and wanting to make sure that when I am doing anything artistic, that at all, that it's representative of me in an authentic way. And what else, it's not, it's authentic if it's really from me. And so, you know, all those things are a part of me, so I just consider, you know, I don't know, that's all. I don't know if anything I said makes sense, but it's a loaded thing for me, because there's so many layers to it, there's so many aspects of it, and it's so important to not leave anything out, I really think. And I think that's kind of the context of culture right now. You know, you can't leave anything out. You got to really consider what's all there, the whole story, the whole truth, not just some of the, you know, false facts, false truths. But, you know, anyway, yeah.
No, that's perfect. I mean, like, and I feel that, and you both spoke to it, saying like bringing your whole self to the stage and your whole self to the process. And I think it can feel like, at least for me, it feels like a surge of energy when like thinking even about that, because like you realize like you're constantly growing and changing and evolving. So then like your influences are growing and changing and evolving, but you're making now in relation to the past while in receiving new information and understanding yourself more, and that's influencing the same process that you're doing. So then it's like, my work yesterday may be different than my work tomorrow, but it's all the same information as we're like developing, one, as people, period. But then also like as Black people, and I don't know, this is just for you, I mean, how it hits you, but I feel like when we're making and attempting to just speak, whether it's for ourselves, whether it's just for the practice sake, whether it is for like an ended goal, an ended project goal or something, do you ever find the tension of wanting to have a contemporary voice for all of your influences and what you want to say, and the tendency, or at least temptation for me, to always have, not always having to, but the need to address the overall things going on in society? I mean, my personal premise, this is just me just thinking, okay, look, we haven't had the privilege to make deconstructed art yet. I was talking to somebody about this. I was like, I got time to be thinking about minimalistic ways of applying and approaching these particular ways of making art, because from my understanding, they come from certain philosophies, and philosophies are informed by your position to even think and associate with those things, you know? Our Enlightenment gives us expressive individualism, so that we're focused on like the individual, like we get, like it happens all at the same time. History, philosophy, it's happening. But in the Black experience, I feel like sometimes we haven't had the privilege to really even begin to make art in this like disconnected way. So how are you as an artist maybe toggling thinking, engaging, or choosing to disengage between making art for art's sake, for what you want to produce, and how it relates to the current like either need, necessity, or expectedness, if that's a word, or the expectation for you to speak on certain things as a brown person?
You and these loaded questions. That is also a loaded question, and I have a very loaded response for you, because I have a very strong opinion about that exact thing. I've been reflecting on it a lot, and it's funny because I've had so many conversations as of late. And it's interesting, even working from a grants making perspective, like there are lots of artists applying for grants, specifically Black artists, or even not even non-Black artists applying for grants, that are trying to do this work to address and talk about systemic racism, injustice, inequality, diversity. And it's like, I don't have an issue with people wanting to do that at all. I think that we as artists speak to the times that we live in, absolutely. at the same time, not all art is activism, and it doesn't have to be. It's hard to separate the two, because I think there is an expectation that as you're creating, especially as a Black body, that your work speak to the Black experience. And my question to people who may argue that your work doesn't, that you know, that's our responsibility as Black artists, is like, just because I don't create a work about activism, how is the work that's not about activism separate from my Black experience? It's the exact same thing. And it's like, you know, like Black Boy Rhetoric was not made to be a statement piece about what's happening in society. It's literally about me, my work, and about my individual Black experience that I wanted to tell before before it felt like right now. I mean, obviously this has been culturally, Black Lives Matter and all this stuff has always been already been a thing. Like, it's always been a conversation, but culturally it feels so much more significant now because of what's happening in our society. And it's like, this solo stuff of mine was a thing before that. So like, I always feel the tension, because I'm like, this is not supposed to be a piece to talk about these issues. And this is where this idea of like, let the work speak for itself in my mind comes into play, because then in that sense, if people get that from seeing it, fine, absolutely, because it speaks to something similar, but it's not the intention for the work. And I think it's hard when you're as an artist to you know, you have your own intention. Again, you have your own intention for the work, and then there's an expectation from the audience. And I'm really be honest with you, I don't know if you can separate those things ever. You just have to be clear about your intention as much as you can, and just what people get from it, which sometimes can suck and not be ideal. But I honestly, for me, I sum it back up in just the fact that not all art is activism, and it doesn't have to be. I think that we just have to accept that, and that we also, especially as Black creators, have to give ourselves space to not engage with everything related to this movement all the time in every way, because it's exhausting. Truthfully, it's exhausting, because it's like you're reliving trauma. You're talking about it even though you don't want to talk about it. You're doing things you may not be in a space to do, and everything, and you don't want to create work that does that for you. So like, I don't know, it's hard to say. It really is. But personally, I do feel like, you know, people, like even our own people, sometimes I'm like, don't be mad at me if I post this video that has nothing to do with this right now, because I do not want to talk about that. I want to talk about, but I think there's also this level of, within our community, there are people who understand that we as a community understand that, like, to an extent, that we, you know, if we don't post work like that, then, you know, it doesn't mean we're not engaging with what's happening. I don't know. This is all interesting. That's, like I said, loaded questions, man. Loaded questions.
Hey, hot take. I'm here for it. They said, I mean, but this is, I love this, because this is a conversation we're having. Some people aren't even at this point in the conversation. They're still wondering like how we're feeling about things. I'm like, this is what we're trying to process right now. This is a present process, and this is what it looks like. And I mean, I would love to hear how, yeah, go ahead. What you got?
Right. Yeah, it is a loaded question. It's a fancy conundrum of sorts. You know, on one end, like Nina Simone says that an artist's duty is to reflect the times, right? And then you take that into being a Black artist, and you know all the crap that goes on in our life from the time that we're born to the day that we die. It's like, does all of my work have to reflect every single thing that's happening to me? Just by me being on the stage, that's Black artistry in the making right there, no matter what it is that I have choreographed or what it is that I'm dancing about. And I remember reading when Kyle Abraham was creating Untitled America, I remember reading an article about it, and he said something along the lines of that he's not necessarily an activist, but he's making work, and he made that work to be in the spectrum of advocacy and of activism. So I feel like I'm in that spectrum as well. What I do is not, all of it is not about activism and strong Black woman, here I am, but it's there already. And because I am Black, and like I said, whenever I'm in the space, all of my background is coming with me. Black artistry is happening right there, no matter what it is that I'm creating or what's happening, or what it is that I'm trying to say. So it's loaded. Trying to sum it up. So yeah, it's a fine line of figuring out and wanting to create this Black art about this Black thing based on what's happening in our Black society right now. And then stepping away from it and just making work for work's sake. This is what I grew up doing. This is what I wanted to do. I've been in it for so long. So just showing up and having it there. But of course, the background of it is, it's a Black woman that's creating this. And then, like you said, the audience may perceive it as, oh, this is going to be about something Black and powerful because it's a Black woman doing it. I mean, if that's what you want to take from it, that's fine. And I'm okay with it. But just know that that's not always the case. I mean, it can be, and it doesn't have to be, but just, enjoy it for what it is.
Man, no, I get it. No, I mean, in the sense, like, I appreciate y'all just sharing it. Because that's what it is. Like, I think that's what the point of conversation is to be able to open up listeners' ears to the things that other people are thinking, because we're not all thinking the same thing. And you guys all have qualified it and disqualified it and said yes and no, and we're different and we're thinking about it in multiple ways. And whoever listening to this, there are Black people who feel and think differently. Go talk to them. Like, talk to them.
Exactly.
It's kind of the point. All of the opinions expressed here do not represent the opinions of all Black artists. That's kind of the point. So go talk to more Black people, see what they're thinking, see what they're feeling, see how they are creating. And that's kind of the point of rhetoric, is to be able to bring our whole selves, and our whole selves are different. And but the really precious thing, I think, at least about this conversation is that it just gets me excited to know that there's been and will always be Black artists making art intentionally and thinking about it well, and coming from it with their best abilities for the sake of, this is who we are, this is our skill set, this is our passion, our desire, and we're wanting to contribute this to the world on whatever level it looks like. Sometimes it might look like talking about some trauma. Sometimes it looks like maybe I was inspired by making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and that's all I wanted to say. And that's it. Okay.
Exactly.
So my last question for you guys, just to wrap up our time, is what, as we're looking to the future, and I know that can be like, I'm a perpetual optimist, so like, if you're like, we still in a pandemic, what you mean future? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to say, as you look towards at least the future or your current making and projected dreams and ideas, hopefully they're sparking there. If they're not, that's fine, that's where you are. What are you finding yourself, if not excited, but enraptured, intrigued by? What is encouraging you? Where you're finding your hope in the sense of being an artist, being a Black artist, and what you're at least excited to attempt in the future in what you want to contribute? Just what's got some gas in the tank? What's got a little spark under you in this particular thing? If it's big, small, whatever.
I can speak to what I'm currently working on for the Artist in Residency program through NCDF. I'm just creating work about me, because when I do stuff outside of my students, it's all, I don't want to sound hypocritical, but it's all about Blackness and Black power and all this. But I mean, of course, it's about me. It's about my personal Black experience, but it's just a love letter to myself, and discovering self-love and self-care, and discovering who I am as a 37-year-old Black woman who's still single and without child in this world. And that's what I'm excited about, of really, really getting my voice out, even if it doesn't go past North Carolina. It's just putting something to my name that doesn't have anything to do with Amelia as the teacher, or Amelia as a former grad student at UNCG underneath people like Dwayne and Robin and all of them. And this is just about just me in 2021 during a pandemic and discovering who I am as an artist and, you know, what it is that I want to say and just creating movement. Still recognizing and understanding and realizing that we got a lot of stuff happening in our society right now, especially in the Black community, but taking some time for myself and loving myself and and enjoying the process. So that's what I'm excited about. So I'm looking forward to and not necessarily just, you know, having a plan every time I have rehearsal. I'm just in the space, just making movement out of just sheer excitement and joy, to not have it to be catered to a child and what that child can do. It's all about, you know, what feels good to me and what feels good to my body and exactly what I want to say through movement and through voice. So yeah, that's my happiness for 2021.
Love that.
Um, yeah, I'm excited and I'm looking forward to some simple things to start. I really just want to go back to the studio. I really miss being in a studio space and just laying on the floor and playing music and doing nothing. And letting my imagination run wild. I miss that so much. I don't think people realize who are not a part of this artistic practice as dancers. I don't think they realize how therapeutic and how much of a ministry it is to be able to move in a studio, in a space, and play some music and just move around. I miss that. I miss that piece of my sanity. I also am looking forward to taking class again. Not on Zoom. I have not taken a single Zoom class on purpose because it's just not for me. I personally want the actual connection. And so I just don't want to do that. I also don't have space in my house for that, and I'm not making space. But looking forward to being in an actual, like being in a class and actually being able to get back into my body and listen to someone as they guide me to experience my body, experience, you know, movement in a different way. Or maybe the same way, who knows, whatever. I don't care. I just want to experience something. I'm also really looking forward to different people's stories. Like I'm so excited about Black people telling their own stories. I'm excited about people of color telling their own stories. I'm excited about new narratives. I'm excited about who's gonna pop up out of the mix. You know, like there's as troubling as the pandemic has been on the industry. I think it's also interesting. It will be interesting to see how it really has allowed people or made people reflect and really think about what it means to do this work. And how we do it. I'm excited to see what comes out of that. And if there are some new creative ways that we approach this thing called dance, you know, it's cool to see Zoom dancing, but like maybe there's something that comes out of this. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm excited for the creativity. I'm excited to feel reignited in that way. I'm also just really looking forward to an opportunity to really present my own work, man. It's been a while since I've done it. And so I'm like really looking forward to an opportunity to do that. And passing that marker on my list of things, you know, check it off. Finally, it's done. But yeah, those are just a few things. And I think there's relatively simple things, but you know, yeah, and just excited to continue to see how things play out in society. Looking forward to some more hopeful news sometimes.
Yeah.
No, right? You know, there's a lot of that other stuff. So I don't know. But anyway, yeah, just those things. Yeah.
Man. Well, I mean, I guess I can add mine so it could be fair. I am I'm excited to explore. For me, I'm a grown woman. I just had a birthday and all of a sudden I'm a grown woman. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing as a grown woman now. So I just artistically, I'm just interested in femininity and the ways of I've related to it and the ways I have rejected many things, and the things that just been kind of capturing my interest is a lot of like hip hop culture. Like I'm just like stuck right now. I'm like fixated like on the 90s and like the early 2000s and female rappers and the way they presented themselves within, you know, specific or against gender roles, all their stuff. I'm just like, because all that informed like how I'm thinking of myself as a grown woman. And I don't I feel like there's some processing there. I mean, like that's all I got. So I should probably process some of these things now that I'm grown. Apparently, that's what I'm told. So emotional health and spiritual health is all wrapped up in that, but also that just yeah, let's do that, and hopefully to do it through some film and do it through where I can direct the gaze differently. And I have no idea what I'm doing, so if you're listening to this and you have some ideas, please hit me up because I don't know. Anyway, and if you've heard, you know, the wonderful things from Jordan Booker-Medley and Amelia Byrd, I'm so glad to have had you this afternoon to just talk on this good old Black History Month. Just thank y'all so much, and I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your individuality. I appreciate what you bring to this industry. I know your students. I know those you are guiding through the financial process. All of those things are appreciated to just see, because we just talked about what it was like to have people who look like us and could understand us on some level be there in the gap. So thank you guys for being there for students and artists, and I'm glad to have had this convo and get to know you. So best wishes on this wonderful February 13th. And again, any listener, if you are interested in any of what these two have said, please contact them. We'll put their contact information in the bio. All right. So have a great afternoon, and okay, bye.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
this. Thank
you.
you so much.
This is great.